We're live. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Of course, this is Tom Costantino, your friendly podcaster. Katrina today is still dealing with some family issues, so it's just me, and I've invited my good friend Jim Allen, because you know what I like about Jim is A, he's a pickleball player. You got to get that out of the way because we may talk pickleball, but in the context of how pickleball is good for Parkinson's, and B, his background is such that he brings a very unique approach to Parkinson's. And to me, it's a very healthy approach to Parkinson's. And that's why I enjoy talking to him, because you're going to hear some things a little bit different today. You're going to hopefully see yourself a little bit differently by the end of the day. And that's because of this good man, Jim Allen. So, Jim, I'll lead that into you and let you take it over from there.
Well, that's awfully nice of you. It's been an interesting couple of weeks for me. So I've gotten back into physical therapy again.
I'm going to do that myself. I got to get back in.
I've begun having stiffness. We all are at different stages in this thing. And I think one of the frustrations for most of us in the early diagnosis stage, I'm 2.5, almost 3 years into it, is the sense that no one can tell you what's next.
Mm-hmm.
No one can tell you what's going to happen next. Well, what's happened next for me is stiffness.
Yeah, I'm there myself right now. Stiffness and muscle rigidity.
Yeah. So that's why I'm back in PT and OT. And so now they're got me doing lots of stretching exercises.
Have you ever considered aqua PT in the water?
I have. I've done some aqua exercising. I don't like it. I find it uncomfortable to not be sort of firmly on the ground. I mean, I understand why it's good for people, but for me, it just feels kind of goopy. Be swinging my arms in water. And
so, years ago, before I moved out to Delaware, I went to the YMCA. They had an indoor pool, and they were doing pool exercises. You know those big long noodles, with the well, we all were holding on a noodle. At one point it slipped and the noodle just kind of like popped up between my legs. And so I had this like 6-inch extension. I'm like, whoops, thank God there's no kids in here because nobody needs to see that. But
I've never been good at the aqua stuff. I used to swim a lot when I was, a Boy Scout many, many years ago, but I've never done the aqua exercise.
Did you make Eagle Scout?
Yes.
So hold on a second. Let me see if I can do this. My son's an Eagle. And there's his, wait a minute. I think I got to go this way. Nope, there we go. I don't know if you can see that.
There's a shadow box.
There's a shadow box with all his merit badges, his sash.
There you
go.
My two brothers and I all made Eagle Scouts. So.
The sad thing was when he applied for colleges, of course, he listed the fact that he was an Eagle Scout, and only one university came back with any sense of even acknowledging the fact that he was an Eagle Scout and acknowledging the fact that it was a course, something you had to do over years, and the fact that he completed it.
Well, and of course, your son would be much younger. And everything changed so much that I don't really have any sense for what's involved in becoming an Eagle anymore. My son-in-law became an Eagle Scout, but I actually don't have any idea what it involved. It doesn't seem to have involved the same stuff that we did.
I tried when he was a scout. I was an assistant scout leader. I'm trying to set up a process by which you can become Eagle. And we had monthly meetings, and we also went to camp every summer. So I said, here are the merit badges that are required for Eagle. Here are the requirements. Here, you have X amount of alternates that you can take. The ones that you can do you can't do here, but you can do at camp. Let's list those as camp merit badges, and then let's do all the other merit badges that you can do locally, and assign one of the parents from the troop, because you need the parents involved to take responsibility for that one merit badge. And then we'll do a path from like Weeblo to Scout to Eagle. And this is the path that we're putting together. And if you don't want to go to Eagle, that's fine. You can just still come.
Yeah.
But there's needs to be a pathway. So I had people struggling with that concept because they wanted it to be troop-led. I'm like, you can't have 16-year-old kids determining their life as far as how to become an Eagle. You need some parental involvement.
Somebody has to be the boss.
Mm-hmm.
So what have you been up to lately?
Well, I got something very interesting. So for those who don't see, I'm also with the Davis Finney Foundation. I don't list it in my name because I don't want this. This is not a Davis Finney event, if you will. But there is a program coordinator there, Sarah Lynn, and she sent me an email it's actually about 3 months ago. There is a peer review program through the Department of Defense where people who apply for scientists who apply for grants, they go to this, DOD, and the DOD is managed by a third party, and they apply for Parkinson's grants. Part of that process, there's two different type of peer reviews. One is people affected by this study, such as myself, caretakers, etc. And then there's the scientific community. Well, I had applied for the role of a consumer reviewer, where I would get the paperwork, the request, and then I look at it with some other people, and we try to look at it from the perspective of how does this help the Parkinson's community?
Yeah.
So I sent it like 3 months ago, and I blind copied myself because I always like to have that timestamp that it was sent, and I never heard from them. So about a month after that, I forwarded another email back to them saying, by the way, can you please either acknowledge that you got my application? If so, what's the process? If you didn't get it, is it still too late? Blah, blah, blah. So now another 2.5, 3 weeks go by. I still haven't heard from them. So now I'm on the internet Googling, and I get the phone number to the help desk, and I call the help desk. Hi, you've reached the help desk. We're not available to help you at the moment. 1 hour later, hi, you've reached the help desk. So the nice thing about cell phones is you can keep a track of the number of times you've called somebody. So after like a week of this, I'm still now doing more research, and I find the help desk email. So I emailed them basically outlining all of this. I said, can you please call me because I can't get a hold of anyone? And their response back was, we don't have outgoing calls. You just have to call us. I'm like, oh my God. I mean, is that government inefficiency at its best?
I spent 5 years with the federal government. Prior to that time, I had always kind of hoped that they weren't incompetent.
That's the hope that was dashed early on.
But what you find in the government is almost everyone that I worked with had previously been in the military. The government has a tremendous preference for former military. It's actually written into the statutes, and they cannot be fired.
Like a tenured professor.
So the incentive level for them was tremendously low.
Very low.
I remember the first big meeting I went to, we were going through pending cases. This is with the EEOC. And so an investigator said, here's my case, presented the case. And the regional attorney said, that sounds like a good case. I think you need to follow up and call these people. And I'd like you to get that done, as soon as you can. When do you think you can have that done? Oh, I can have it done within 6 months, no problem.
6 months.
And I sat there and thought to myself, you've got to be kidding me. And they all said, oh, okay, that'll work. I'm shocked and amazed. 6 months? I remember when I was in the military, in the Navy, and the commander of my naval hospital was speaking to the head of personnel, and he asked for a memo on a particular set of facts. And the lieutenant said, well, Captain, when do you want that? And the captain looked at him and said, well, if I wanted it tomorrow, I would have asked for it tomorrow.
I like that. That's a great answer.
and he did the perfect answer was, yes, sir. And he went off and did the report. That's the difference between the military and the government.
Yeah. So now I'm at the point where I'm very, very frustrated. And I'm starting to Google more, and I find the name of a person associated with it. I get that person's contact information. So they said, well, I can't help you, but this person can probably help you. So they gave me another name. And that name led into this other lady's name, who was the person. And she reached out to me and said, unfortunately, I can't find your file. I know you sent it. So I forwarded everything to her, and she set me up with an appointment the next day, which was nice. And it was interesting because as we were talking, she goes, I just want to apologize for all the confusion. It shouldn't have happened this way. I'm very sorry. And I said, well, first I said, you didn't do anything, so I don't need you to apologize, but I appreciate it. But secondly, if you saw the persistence and tenacity it took from point A to get to this interview with you today, just trying to get the interview, imagine what I'd be like if you select me. And she did what you did. She just laughed. She goes, I think that's good. I looked at your resume. I looked at your body of work. Basically, would you like to have this position? I said, yes. And that was the interview.
There you go. Well, good work.
So that probably starts somewhere in October when the fiscal year, starts, when they budgeting for the fiscal year. Then they're going to send us proposals, and then we have to basically read a lot, dissect them.
Yeah.
write up a proposal and send. So when she first asked me, what do you think of the program? I said, the word daunting just kept popping in my head. I looked at the first paragraph. I said, this is daunting. Second paragraph, this is daunting. By the time I got to the point where they say they talk to people like myself and spouses, and I figured, okay, the level, even though it seems daunting, it's daunting at a level that I can appreciate and understand.
One of the things I've recently come across a lot, and I think a lot of people with Parkinson's struggle with it, is the inevitable inefficiencies of bureaucracy.
Yep.
So I go to a movement disorder center. It's a center of excellence. The medical care is outstanding. When I went to my meeting in January with my movement disorder specialist, he gave me a referral to physical therapy and occupational therapy. I never heard from him. So a month later, I called and they said, oh yeah, they said, we don't have anything. I said, well, look at the notes, because I'd printed out the notes. In the notes, they looked at the notes and okay, yeah, that's what it says. That's what we're supposed to do. We'll take care of it. Didn't hear anything. So then I went to my next appointment. And so that's been 3 months. And first thing I said is, last time you said we needed physical therapy, occupational therapy, it never happened. And so he apologized. And so okay, well, get your physical therapy, occupational therapy. Nothing happened.
Jeez.
So I called. And the lady was very apologetic. And she said, okay, I've got you an appointment. She set me an appointment for May 8th, I think it was. So May 8th, we got an appointment. We're going to do, or May 1st, we're going to do this appointment. And so here's what time you show up. I've got you both PT and OT the same day. This will be great. So I got all ready and I went to the appointments. They never heard of me. It was totally lost. And then I did get a call later that afternoon from them. And they said, listen, we're sorry. We know what happened. We understand where it fell through, and they set me up for the next week, and everything's fine since then. But you have to realize that everyone, so if you go to a movement disorder specialist, the movement disorder specialist is an expert
at movement disorder.
The nurse is an expert. The technician is less of an expert.
Mm-hmm.
The person sitting at the front desk is a person who sits at front desks.
Yeah.
The person in the office who prints out referrals and sends them out is a very low-paid general office employee who may or may not be motivated to do their job well. And when you realize that every expert you deal with is supported by a whole bunch of people who are paid very low wages and tend not to be highly motivated in their work, you learn to be patient about these mistakes. It's not Dr. Morgan's fault that this messed up. It's not the physical therapist's fault. It's somebody along the way who will never be known and has probably already been fired who just bounced the information. Our local clinic hired a person to do outreach, to do educational outreach in the community. And I got in touch with her when she first came on board, and she said, oh, well, we'll meet sometime. Okay. So then I saw her at a meeting and I talked to her and she said, oh yeah, we need to meet, but it'll have to be after this. And so she had a meeting come up in 3 weeks. So it'll have to be after that. So, okay. So we're going to meet after that. So after that we talked and she said, oh yeah, we need to get together. I'll give you a call. Never heard from her. And now I found out she's quit.
Oh God.
And so for 3 months, they've had a person that they're paying to do educational outreach. She's done zero outreach. And then she quits. So, I mean, you can't say it's their fault, except they just hired the wrong person for the job.
Yeah.
But it's very frustrating for the people who are being treated. But you just have to learn to be patient about it because there's nothing you can do.
Well, see, I found out I have no tolerance for stupidity. And patience is something, it goes back to my work days. I was an alpha manager type guy. There was a problem and needed to be fixed. I fixed it. In fact, one day I was talking with my boss and I said, Mike, can I ask you a question? He was the president of this operating company. He called me blockhead because I'm very blockheadish. It was a term of endearment. He said, blockhead, why do you even bother to ask? You always do whatever you want to do. And I looked at him and I said, Mike, I agree with you, but when's the last time I was wrong? Because Mike, if I follow the procedures and the processes that are required, it's going to take me hours, if not days, to get done, and I need to get it done now. So again, Mike, I ask you, when was the last time I was wrong? And then I just got up and left. But that's where the frustration lies. Is people such as yourself who want to get things done, you just run up against these hurdles.
And you never know if it's incompetence or if they don't like you.
Yeah.
Is it that she's not good at her job, or is that I'm an annoyance and she doesn't want to have to put up with me?
Well, I don't think anyone ever
I misunderstand her job and think I'm relevant, but I'm not.
Yeah.
And you can't really tell. So one of the things, you learned a long time ago, as you were saying to that lady, being mad at her because of the process it took you to get to her would be useless.
Right. And she didn't do anything.
No, it'd be counterproductive. Being mad at the physical therapist would have been a waste of my time. Being mad at the lady sitting at the physical therapist desk would have been a waste of my time. It wasn't in her computer. If it's not in her computer, it doesn't exist in her world.
Yeah.
Someone else I will never know or meet or ever have anything to do with who screwed up my appointments.
Someone once asked me, why is everybody your best friend? And my response to that was basically twofold. In a business environment, if I'm working with you in a business environment, why would I not want you to be my friend? Why would I want any type of relationship other than a friendly? Because for a personal self-interest perspective, if our relationship is above buy or sell or whatever, and there's a personal relationship there, I can get away with more things. I can get you to be more calm. And I said, the other thing is, why would you not want to treat people as your friend? I say, a stranger is, this is only for adults. A stranger is a friend you just haven't made yet. I mean, why would you ever approach any relationship, even if you're in the grocery store and you're putting the groceries on the conveyor belt? Why wouldn't you treat her as a friend? Hi, how you doing this morning? How's everything?
Why either make enemies or treat people as if they're not important?
Yeah, because in the selfish way, it serves no purpose.
But see, again, being a Christian, this is very simple. There are two rules that Jesus gives us: love God and love your neighbor. And there are no other rules. Those are the rules.
Well, if you meet my neighbor, that love your neighbor thing is good because I have a great neighbor.
And do you remember the what Jesus said when they asked him about what it meant to love your neighbors?
No.
He told the Good Samaritan rule, the Good Samaritan parable.
I like that.
Now, the parable of the Good Samaritan, of course, is the Samaritans are detested by the Jews. You know who the Samaritans were?
Not off that time.
They were Assyrians. They were moved into the area after Assyria took over and moved Israel out. They moved into the area that is between Galilee and Judah, and they settled there. So they were not Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
But because they intermarried with Jewish people, they developed Jewish culture.
Right.
So they were non-Jews who thought they were real Jews, and the Jews despised them because they weren't real Jews, and they despised the Jews because they thought they were the real Jews and the Jews weren't.
Wow. So
they hated each other's guts. So the Samaritans, walking down the street, and a man has been attacked. He's an innocent man. He's been attacked. He's laying in the street. This is the story he tells to explain how to love your neighbor. And two people who are righteous, a Pharisee and a rabbi, pass by and do not help the man. They pass to the other side of the street so they don't have to help him.
Mm-hmm.
But the Samaritan helps him. The man's a Jew, but the Samaritan helps him, takes him to a place, pays for him to stay there, gives money to the people to take care of him, and goes on his way. And this question was this: who then was the man's neighbor?
The Samaritan.
The Samaritan, who did not know him, had never met him, had no relation to him, and had every reason in the world to hate him. So the answer to the question, who is my neighbor, is to whom are you a neighbor?
Oh, I like that.
And the answer has to be that you have to be a neighbor to everyone in the world.
Yeah, it just makes sense.
So every conversation you have, you're speaking to a neighbor. Every time you make a presentation, you're speaking to a neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
Every time someone comes and sits to have lunch with you, they're a neighbor.
Yeah.
And so once you get that into your head, then it's really not hard to be nice to everybody.
Mm-hmm. I like that approach because it's just a way of looking at people differently. Like I got into a conversation yesterday with somebody about diversity and inclusion. And I'm like, I don't care for the term diversity, because by nature, if you diversify this group to this group, you said there's something separate about them. We're all the same. I mean, but when you start saying, well, this group is the Hispanic group, this is the African American group, this is the Irish group, suddenly they're no longer just anybody, they're part of that group. And I've always found that to be, I understand the rationale behind it in a sense, because they want to raise all ships. But I think by doing that, when you put someone different, then you've basically attached some kind of label to them. And if you just get rid of the labels and you just see people as being people, it makes so much more difference.
And it's astonishing how it rotates through history, because the original, of course, idea of the division was people who did not want to help those who were others. Mm-hmm. They wanted to hurt those who were others. So they separated them and had them live in different places, made slaves of them, do all these different things. So they treated the others as worse. Then we went through the period of the civil rights movement where the whole goal was to stop doing that.
Right.
So that people would be treated as people. One of my favorite images is the old image from the Civil Rights Act, the Civil Rights period, of a man standing there, a black man standing there with a sign around his neck that says, "I am a man."
Yeah.
That is the entirety of the civil rights movement. I am a man. I'm not a black man.
I'm a man.
And I should be treated as a man. It's one of the things that Frederick Douglass particularly spoke eloquently on during his life. Lincoln spoke eloquently on it. A man is a man is a man. That's the way it works. It's
right.
Not a black man or white man, anything else. It's just that. So the Martin Luther King position was content of character, not color of skin. Mm-hmm. I am a man. But then it shifted. So now those who used to be in favor of equality are now in favor of what they call diversity, which is that we're back to treating people on the basis of these external characteristics.
Correct.
As if they are not our neighbors at all, but as if they are special people who need help, because otherwise they won't be able to survive.
I agree.
We treat them as something different. And it is interesting that it's gone that way culturally, and it just shifts, and it'll go back again, and it'll shift around somebody else later.
And we were in the city a while back, and we noticed, I made the comment, there seems to be a lot of homeless people here. And I was corrected that they're not homeless, they're unhoused. And so
they're homeless.
I just wanted to go to this person and say, do me a favor, walk over to that guy who's got a sign that says, "Will you help homeless?" and tell him that he's not homeless, he's unhoused. Yeah. And ask him, how did that make your life better? It makes you feel better because you're taking away the word homeless because you have a negative stigma of that attached to it. But to the person, it means nothing. You know, I remember, it's funny the way things influence your life. When I was a kid, I grew up outside Chicago, and you could get WGN, which was the Cubs. They played on G, and the White Sox played on this station that in 1970s you had to have an antenna on your house with like a 20-foot mast, and so we never watched this, but we were Cubs fans, and specifically the '69 Cubs. I was 10 years old, and I loved those, and I still remember the starting lineup, all that geeky stuff. But there were three players: Billy Williams, Ernie Banks, and Ferguson Jenkins, and they were all black athletes. But I only saw them as a Cub player. I never saw them as black or white or whatever. And I think to a certain extent, that's framed the way I look at it. If I don't like you, it has nothing to do with the color of your skin, nothing to do with your politics. It's because I don't like you. And it's, not as though I want everybody to be my friend, but if I choose not to like somebody or not make them my friend, it's not for a reason other than for whatever reason, I just don't like you.
So then, in the world of Parkinson's, we have the same sort of a challenge. Because there are so many, because Parkinson's is by its nature infinitely diverse.
Yep.
It affects everybody there is, all nations and tongues and tribes, as the Bible would say.
There are no biases.
Given that set of facts, the question is, how do you reach people in a world that still thinks that way? Mm-hmm. So, for example, I've noticed that among the support groups that I've come to know, they are almost all either white or black groups. They're very mixed groups.
Okay.
Which is unfortunate that it would be that way. But then I live in a world where separation by the races was always true because I'm in the South. But you find even among medical professionals, and speaking with the movement disorders clinic, they were expressing that they're surprised at how few African American patients come to them in an area where there's 60% African American.
Right. You
Why do they
assume.
have so few of them that come to them? And the answer, one of the answers is that actually the rate of Parkinson's among African Americans is lower than it is among whites. But the real answer is they simply are not seeking the medical care in the same way. And that's a cultural thing that needs to be addressed. Because we need to figure out a way to reach these other groups of people. We need to be able to reach those groups of folks. So in that extent, we have to take into account these externalities, these ethnic issues, because you have to go through different organizations to reach those people.
Right. I agree with you there. And I've become more, I say, a big picture Parkinson's guy, where I'm trying to do things at a higher level in a sense to make a larger impact on them. And although it was interesting because this is what frustrates me sometimes is most Parkinson's patients are older, so I'll give them that. But the lack of involvement, if you will, now I don't even want to say or lack of just apathy. I went to a workshop or a Parkinson's Expo about 3 weeks ago, and University of Delaware was there, and they're doing this program where they want to do like motion movements studies, arm strength, how can you all that. And so I asked him, I said, man, I'd love to do this. But you're 2.5 hours away from me. I just can't drive 2.5 hours from 1 hour session and 2.5 hours back. He said, well, we can do it locally. I said, okay, that's great. I said, where I live, I have access to a physical fitness center that has like a meeting room. And I'm sure I can get them to give me permission to use the room for an hour, especially because of what the underlying. So I sent a group email to 111 people that was on the distribution list. 20 of them came back as unknown because they either had the email address wrong or that didn't exist any longer. So now I'm working with like 90. And then I got 90 out of 90 people. I got 3 responses. One said, my husband passed away. Please take me off the list, which I can appreciate. One other person said, I'm really interested. And one other person said, I can't do the drive, even though it's where you're running. Yeah. But to me, what drives me bonkers is here's an opportunity to spend an hour with someone who specializes in movements, if you will. Why wouldn't you want to? There's only upside to that. And so that's where I have to be careful because that's where my frustrations lie. But it's almost the point that you need to work on them harder than you've got to work on the people who are already involved.
Well, Tom, it's kind of a personal question.
Sure.
Do you ever feel like you could just quit doing anything?
I have apathy issues at times. Yes. Sometimes I just want to, someone once says like a flight risk. I just want to get on a plane. I want to fly to the Bahamas and just lay on the beach and drink coconut water. And, I could see myself at times doing that. And I think that's how as a result of the Parkinson's and the chemical changes in the brain.
I sometimes think to myself, and see what I do now. Okay. I do pickleball almost every day.
Same here.
I do my exercises. I'm the president of my support group. I do the N. Davis Finney stuff. And I'm dealing with these different groups, trying to get things going, doing my PT and OT. I'm a father and a husband, and I've got all this other stuff going on. But sometimes I sit and I think to myself, I know people with Parkinson's who do nothing but sit around all day. Mm-hmm. And I could do that.
Yeah, but I can't.
To be honest, I could do that. I honestly think to myself sometimes, I could do that. I understand just saying I'm done with it. Mm-hmm. Yep. And I don't want to do this anymore.
Because you just want to be Jim.
I just want to. Sometimes you just want to quit. You just want to say, So Monday there was a the local boxing group had a charity golf tournament, and we needed to have a table there, and nobody had arranged to have any coverage, so I ended up covering a table at the golf tournament on Monday. So to get that all set up, starting when I learned about it, which was Thursday, so we got the table, we got everything arranged, we got everything picked up and everything taken there. And I remember just sitting there thinking to myself, if I had just said I'm not coming, that would have made my Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday a lot easier.
Yep.
But I'm glad I did it.
Yeah. Well,
I understand the feeling of people who just don't want to do it.
I have a sense of obligation, I think, in respect to give back. Because when I was first diagnosed, I don't know where I found this, but there was a program through AbbVie and Michael J. Fox. It was an advocate woman. So I worked with her for like 6 months. And Jim, she saved my life. I mean, she knew more about Parkinson's than my doctor, than everything. And so I was extremely grateful to her. And then one day she says, I'm going to be speaking with the doctor at this restaurant in your area. Could you come and support? And I'm like, sure. First of all, where are you? What restaurant? She gave me the name of the restaurant. I said, well, I know the owner. Don't give him any money yet. So I called the owner and I'm like, I got him I told him what was going on. And I don't really ask a lot of times. I just tell. I said, John, you're going to let us use the room for free, and you're going to give us a meal, and just make it chicken, potatoes, and feed everybody. And I'm going to ask you to do that for the park. And he goes, absolutely, because we had a great relationship. So I'm in the session, and no one's paying attention to her. And I truly believe this woman if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be here today. I mean, I'd still be here, but not here.
Yeah.
So when I went to that session and no one's paying attention, I told her ahead of time that if I see something wrong, I have to talk. But I'm going to give you warning, because I'm going to start like rubbing my nose. So I'm going like this. I'm just rubbing the hell out. And she stood up. She acknowledged me. And I got up and I looked around the room and said, folks, you got to help me understand this. This woman's offering you her personal help. She's a wonderful person. This is what she did for me. And then it hit me. I said, you know who she is to me? She's my Sherpa. I'm trying to get to the top of the mountain, and I can't carry my weight. So she carried the weight for me and got me to the mountaintop. And I felt like at that point, it was my responsibility to carry your weight. And I find that it gives me a sense of purpose in my life, because I think we all have to have a sense of purpose. Otherwise, but to your point, there's, Randy LeBlanc, he's another ambassador. I often call him up and say, Randy, you got to take a step back. You cannot continue to do all that you do, because it's affecting your personal life. It's affecting your physical life, your emotional life. And, because God bless Randy. I love him. He's my brother, but he wants to save the world. And I've told him that, Randy, you cannot save the world. And if something happens within that world, it's not your responsibility. If you don't take care of yourself first, you're not going to be there for other people.
Yeah. So
in one respect, because you care so much for other people, you have to cut back.
Yeah.
And these are very unique people in the world. And this is what I'm attracted to as well, is the type of people, especially within the foundation. And I meet when I go to these seminars and workshops, I'm just amazed at the people, because no one there is defeated. Everyone's there because whether they just want to get the Danish and a cup of coffee or whatever, but they're there for a reason, and they want to find something they can take back with them. And I love that. It's kind of like, I wish I could be a teacher, because when you tell somebody something and they get it, there's a great sense of satisfaction.
Yeah.
There's a group that we do called PD Self, and it's for like newly diagnosed individuals. And we were talking to one of the members, and she said, can I ask a question about medication? I said, well, first of all, you don't have to ask. This is what the whole thing's about.
Yeah.
And she goes, well, this is what I think my doctor told me. It's like, take one Cinemet at 7 in the morning and one at 7 at night. And I'm like, are you sure? And she said, yeah, I'm pretty sure. I said, well, I'm not a doctor, but I know a Cinemet tablet taken at 7 in the morning is probably out of your system by 5 hours later.
Yeah.
And so you've got a 12-hour window. So if you get 4 hours, that means 8 hours you have nothing in your system. You really need to reach out to your doctor and ask him to clarify that. And she felt a little uncomfortable with that. And I said, her name is Lily. I said, Lily, I'm giving you a homework assignment. I'm the teacher. You have a homework assignment. When we talk next, and it's going to be next week. And then she replies back like the second day. And she said, I did talk to my doctor. I misunderstood. I'm on my regular meds now. Thank you very much. And those moments in time make it all worthwhile.
And I know you're in a support group, right?
Yeah, I belong to like 3 different support groups.
And our support group, one of the most frustrating things to me has been presentations by people.
Yeah.
So today I went to a seminar that another organization has. They do one every month, and the person was talking about occupational therapy. And you've done occupational therapy.
Yeah, I did it from post-surgery. Yeah.
It's fascinating stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They have all these really cool things that they do with you and all this really interesting stuff that they do and ways of all this. This was the most boring presentation. It's as if you took the most interesting, it's as if you took being a Shakespearean actor and gave an hour-long lecture saying things like, be emotive. As a Shakespearean actor, it is incumbent upon you to organize your presentation in a manner that is most likely to appeal to the main person in your projected audience. It's just like, just shoot me in the head. There's so many interesting things. I don't understand how you can make a presentation on occupational therapy and not bring some stuff.
Yeah.
Show people what you're using. Show people what you do to make them interested in it, because your goal in being there is not to teach people what it is. Your goal in being there is to make people see how it can help them in their lives.
Yeah, because you're not trying to teach a concept. You're trying to teach something that's physical. I was in sales management for the longest time, and I learned early on that we're not, in theory, we're selling concepts, but we're really not. I mean, if you can't make that physical connection between the concept and the person, you're never going to make that sale. And I kind of look at things like in that respect too. We were at one of the expos I went to about 3 weeks ago. They had a speaker, and she was one of these friends of the flower type people, yoga. And I sat in on this discussion, and I was going crazy. There's every ounce of my body wanted to jump up and say, "What the hell are you talking about?" It's like, oh, she had us all like saying like, ooh, and woo. And I'm like, someone may find that fun for a minute, but at the end of the day, going woo and woo is never going to do anything for me.
I went to a Tai Chi presentation, and I understand Tai Chi is an excellent discipline for the body.
I've been trying to start Tai Chi.
But the trouble is, what this guy did is he kept explaining the philosophy behind Tai Chi, which to me is utter nonsense. That there's this chi that lives in your belly.
No, it's in my hands.
No, it's in your belly, and you do all these things to make the chi go out and all this other stuff. And I thought, why am I spending 20 minutes listening to this nonsense? Show me how Tai Chi works. Show me how the moves work. Show me how to think about it. Don't teach me this Chinese philosophy. I don't really care.
This is what I love about having you on the show, what you just did. That's great.
I mean,
you see things for what they are, and you don't, you don't have the Pollyanna glasses on.
I mean, you see this a lot on these yoga things, and a lot of it's like, remember Romper Room? There's Bobby. There's Mary. Ooh,
at the end, did you wait and see if she said there's Jim or Jimmy?
I never watched Romper Room. It was too young for me.
I just remember as a kid.
I remember with my kids, and it was like, it's also sappy and so jargon filled. And the fact is, I'm making a presentation to our Parkinsons group in May. And my attitude toward this is, everybody in that room is facing a challenge in their life. And my job is to help them with that challenge in their life. It is not my job to explain to them the theoretical constructs of anything. I want them to understand what's happening to them. So I will talk to them about the substantia nigra. Here's what it is. I'll show them a picture. Here's what it is. Of course, it's a picture of a dead one, because you can't get pictures of live ones. That's the way it works.
At least not in the U.S.
You can't anywhere. So that's simply the way it works. And they don't need to know the philosophical constructs of it. Dr. Okun made the comment that we really don't know that much about Parkinson's. He said, we don't know as much as you think we know. What's going on in the brain is so infinitely complex that we are nowhere close to understanding fully what's going on. And if you think we are, then you're wrong. They have all kinds of things. They have all this serotonin and these gila or gillas or whatever these different things are, and all this stuff going on in the brain. But none of that matters to me. What matters to me is that my substantia nigra is dying and I'm running out of dopamine. And that would, and I've got all these people in this meeting, and they want to know why their husband can't do this suddenly. And yesterday he could, but he couldn't do this other thing. Or why their wife, who used to be able to do this, can't do this anymore. And the answer is because your substantia nigra is dying and your brain's not working.
That's everything's connected to that.
Yeah. So I don't want to get into this jargon-filled presentation. I want to explain to people what's happening to them. So I got a really good image of a Lewy body. It's an excellent image. This is what a Lewy. I found a video where they have actually made Lewy bodies in a laboratory.
Oh.
They took misfolded alpha-synuclein and put it into nerve cells that they have, Petri dish nerve cells, I guess, and they could watch it, and it would create Lewy bodies.
Wow.
They, over time, in a period of 21 days, it would go from having a single misfolded alpha-synuclein to having a Lewy body.
Wow.
Now, of course, that's not how it happens in the brain because the brain's different, but that's the process and how it forms little tendrils and how the tendrils bring in the mitochondria and all this stuff gets put together in this little thing. And it was astonishing to me. But the fact is, I've got a picture of a Lewy body. I can show them what it is. It's really big. It's in the middle of a living cell, and it's bigger than the nucleus of the cell. Eventually, it's going to destroy the cell.
Right.
And if you show them that picture, they'll go, "Oh, that's bad." And there can be 4 or 5 of them in a single cell.
I do some advocacy work with Michael J. Fox Foundation, and we've on 3 or 4 occasions we met with the staffers for the Congress people and U.S. senators, and everyone's just basically the concept was the guy from Michael J. Fox was going to give him this pitch on how Parkinson's funding has been. We're still at the same levels we were years ago. As a matter of fact, we have less if you index for inflation. So what we're here is we're not asking you basically to give us more money. We're just asking you to reinstate us where we used to be. And so where our point was to come in is that just tell them like a 5-minute story of our life so they get a better understand. So I decided I wanted to go last because the first lady did a great thing about her husband. The other 2 were great about how it's affected their life. And I said to them, there's 1 million people in the U.S. with Parkinson's estimated. Every one of those 1 million people is different. For me to tell you my story, it's just one of the 1 million stories. It doesn't carry that much weight. But what I'd like to show you is, and I had an X-ray of somebody's head after DBS. And you could see the wiring on the skull. It looked like spaghetti. You could see the leads going into the brain. Yeah. You can see the wiring go down the neck. I said, I'm going to email this to you. And what I want you to do is give this to your congressperson or senator. Have them keep it in their bag. And the next time someone says, I don't want to support Parkinson's research, just pull it out and say, are you telling me that you don't want to support research that will allow this never to happen again? Research to find a way, because otherwise 50% of the people get DBS and they got to go through their life with like a little pacemaker and all this other stuff. And, they say, a lot of people say it changed my life. I'm like, well, I'm glad it changed your life, but let's find a way so it never has to happen, so it doesn't have to change your life. And so it was more, I wanted to do more of a shock and awe because if you hear the same thing over and over again, you stop hearing.
You do. And so many, it seems to me, so many presenters don't really care about what they're presenting about. They don't generate any energy. I don't know how you are when you speak to a group of people. I've seen you speak, but I don't know how you work. You have to generate energy. You have to show people that you care, because if you don't show them you care, they're not going to care.
It's like I feel like I'm a minister and I'm preaching.
Yeah,
because you've got to find a way. I think the biggest challenge to speaking to a group is getting to know your audience and getting to know what you can and can't do. And I'd like to see. I feel like I have a good judge of people for the most part, and I just like to pull them in, like Paul Harvey. Hit him with something, and now here's the story. I love Paul Harvey, but I agree with you. The last 2 expos I went to, the one wanted University of Delaware had one. It was big, and they wanted $1,000 for the table for Davis Finney for any table.
You told me about that, yeah.
And so I said, I just signed up as an attendee for $25, and I worked the room. And I was talking to the people back at Davis Finney, and they're like, well, that's a very interesting approach. I said, well, it's not an interesting approach. It's just a way of thinking. I'm not going to, and I said, the other point is for me to be in that room, sitting down with people and talking to them, I can't get that same exposure at the table.
No.
I'm actually glad. And, but I worked the room, I gave it, and that's where I thrive. I love introducing myself because I can talk to anybody, anytime, for the most part, about any subject. I know my limitations, but for me to walk up to you at a meeting, because what I used to love to do is go in and I'm trying to see who the decision makers are in the meeting, and then I make it a point to reach out to them. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do now with this podcast and other things, is trying to find out who are the people within the Parkinson's community that have gathered a large audience, and see if we can get those people together to a certain extent so we can bring in a larger audience and more people here. Like I've been looking at we don't do a lot live because not many people can jump on at 2:00 on a Thursday. But when I look at the number of hits and the number of, we're someone getting anywhere from like a low ones of 80 to a high of 300 viewers. And the way I look at it, if I can get 300 people to look at the podcast, 300 people hopefully got to learn something or didn't, but it's still 300 people. And they made a conscious effort to look at it, which means they're engaged. It's like a warm call versus a cold call. I don't like cold calls. I like warm calls.
That makes good sense. So now tell me, what kind of pickleball paddle you use these days?
Oh, so did I tell you about the tape? The lead tape?
Oh, you did tell me about the lead tape.
Well, I tell you, to be honest with you, it changed my game.
Did it help?
Because, first of all, some people say I'm cheap. I'm frugal. There's a difference. I used to tell my kids, like, when I need to buy something, I go to Consumers Report because I trust them. And I look at their top recommendations, like for TV, whatever. Yeah. And I buy the least expensive one in the top recommendation. Because if I can spend $500 and get a TV that they give 5 stars to, and I can spend $1,200, why would I do that?
Yeah.
But I'm always sort of looking in that context. But oh shit, I just forgot my train of thought. What was pickleball. So I have a good pickleball paddle, but it's light. It's on the thinner end, and I find that I don't really feel like it's an extension of me. It's just like it's nothing. But so I was doing. Someone mentioned that in tennis they have this lead tape that they put on the rackets to make the racket heavier. So I went to Amazon. I hate and love Amazon because I go Amazon.com and 2 days later I get whatever I want.
That's right.
It's so easy to hit that send button. So I put the tape on it, and there's like 8 pieces. So it's like 2, 4, 6, 8. So I want to bet, and it just when I pick up my paddle now, I can sense it, I can feel it. It's part of it. And to me, I'm also trying to play. When I first started playing, I got somewhat accustomed to the game. I was trying to be a power hitter because I didn't know how to be a nuance hitter yet. So I was always trying to power the ball. And so now I get to the point now that I like to tell people I'm evolving as a human being. I'm playing more strategically. I'm watching when you're serving, I'm watching your paddle so I can see, because I only got 2 seconds from the time you serve till I need to make a decision what to do, because I actually kind of timed it. So I got to look at your paddle. If you're coming down on the ball, I know you're putting backspin on it. So that means when it bounces, I got to expect to come up or left or right. And when I find it with a lot of people who have that same serve with the same spin, it always breaks left 100% of the time.
Yeah.
So when they serve with the spin, I just go break left, and I'm there when the ball hits. And and I'm playing more. I'm trying to play more strategically. What I really love is that there's a couple people I love playing with, because if I drive the ball across the court and the ball's coming back, they know that there's like a void from Star Wars. There's a break in the continuum. So he'll just like drive it. If they hit it, he'll drive it right down the middle. And I love those games where people have a better understanding of the strategic aspect of it, and we don't have to really communicate with each other so much because we know what the other person's going to do.
Yeah. Well, that's good. You're still playing how many times a week?
At least 3, if not more.
Yeah.
It's so difficult to get a court here. So there's a group of us that try playing during the day, But no one, even though everyone's retired, no one can commit to a specific day. Like
Yeah.
Monday and Thursdays, I play at night for 2 hours. So I don't really play Monday, Thursday during the day. But I'd like to get a set Tuesday, Wednesday, or Friday where we know every Tuesday we got a group of 5 or 6 that are going to play.
Yeah, the place I play is really easy. You just show up at 8 o'clock and play. There are always people coming in to play.
How do you guys? Do you have like not a ranking system, but you like hang up your paddles and
you put your paddles up and play. And if you get there around 8, you're usually one of the first 4. If you get there about 8:10, you're going to have to wait for people to finish a game before you get to get in.
I found the same thing. If we're like tonight's a 7 o'clock start, I'll get there at 6:30 because if I get there closer to 7, they're already playing.
Yeah,
and then I gotta wait for
at 9 o'clock. It usually gets really crowded, and usually by 9:30, all 8 courts are playing. And usually by then I'm leaving.
Yeah.
I've begun to have an issue with breathing when I play pickleball.
You're just overexerting yourself?
No, I think it's a function of I need to go back and do my speech therapy again.
Oh, okay.
I have exercises and I haven't been doing them because my voice has been fine.
Yeah.
But after about an hour and a half of pickleball, I start coughing just suddenly. I start just really violent coughing, and I can barely keep my breath up. And if I'm in the middle of a game, I'll usually finish the game, but it's a real problem. And then I just have to quit for the day. And I think it's a function. I don't think it's a function of food or reflux because usually I don't eat before I play. It's just a function, I think, of my throat muscles not being as strong as they need to be. Most people say, well, your voice sounds fine, that everything's okay, but I can feel it.
Yeah. Well, one thing I've always noticed, and in our conversations, when I see you, I don't see Parkinson's. I don't hear it in your voice. I don't see it in your mannerism. Yeah. And I think that's one of the disadvantages too of this disease, because people may see you from the waist up right now, and they don't see the Parkinson's. One of the things that I've done is I've noticed I do this a lot when I'm talking. So I went back and watched some of my videos, and of course, I'm like the whole video, I'm like this. And there are times where I can feel my face scrunching up, and I don't realize those things until I went back on the video and I watched them.
Watching yourself speak is excellent. Excellent. I watch my own videos of my sermons probably a little bit every week. And the worst thing currently in my sermons is my left hand is always in my pocket.
Oh, yeah.
That's for the side that my Parkinson's is most severe on. And my left hand doesn't do anything unless I intentionally make it do it. So with my right hand, I just naturally gesture.
Right.
But my left hand doesn't gesture unless I think gesture. It just sits there.
Well, one of my first symptoms was I wasn't swinging. They noticed I wasn't swinging my left arm. But eight and a half years later, I swing my left arm. So, and my sense of smell is coming back a little bit, which at one point I completely lost my sense of smell.
Yeah, I've pretty much lost my sense of smell entirely. Every now and then I'll get something, but not very often.
I'll come in the house and I'll say, I smell this, like I smell that. And fortunately, I don't smell any odors. I just smell the good ones.
I still can't smell food. So
someone asked me, is one of those interesting things like, well, with your lack of smell, does your food taste different? Like, I don't know. Because I can't put an objective standard like this should taste just like this. And then I taste it. It's not just like that. But I taste my food. I enjoy it. But I can't tell you if it's good, better, or worse.
To me, things are pretty much bland compared to what they used to be. Salt and sugar, I still taste really well. Other flavors, I don't really taste that well.
And you're not supposed to be doing salt and sugar. So those are the two things you can taste.
I used to love barbecue, but barbecue now is just like eating paste. There's no smell. There's not really a lot of flavor to it. But
so I always thought I was in the restaurant industry and food distribution for most all my adult life. And I thought I wanted to start a barbecue restaurant. I was going to call it Fat and Happy, because when you leave, I want you to say, "Boy, I'm fat and happy." But then in the middle for the low cal menu for people it's like thin and miserable.
There you go.
That's one of the things I love barbecue, and I love to. We have a place down the street that they smoke their own meats and everything, so you can just it's summer when you smell them smoking his meats.
I had never seen, or I don't remember ever having seen how barbecue works. But at a church cookout once, there was a guy, and they just brought a pig,
Low and slow.
and they were barbecuing that pig, and it, it's on the grill, and they've been cooking all night, and they're just kind of got a fork and they're just pulling it. It's going to be pulled pork barbecue. And I thought, man, I had never seen that before. It really is something. It doesn't make it more attractive, but you understand at least what you're eating.
There was, when I was working, I managed national accounts such as Popeyes, Shake Shacks, IHOPs. We had a group that called Lito's Pizza that we were working on. They started off local Maryland, and they grew to there's 150 units. So they're looking for a way to expand, but they didn't, because the only thing the ownership group just gets a percentage of the sales. They don't own anything.
Yeah.
So, but they figured that they didn't want to expand with more pizza shops because they don't want to overpopulate the area and make their franchisees unhappy because they're competing with themselves. So they bought this concept called Urban Barbecue. And the pitch was that as a pizza owner, you can put in the barbecue right next door and they're not going to compete with each other. Because people go for barbecue, they go for pizza. It's not like, geez, which one do I want?
Yeah.
But the funny thing is when they roll this out, you're a guy that runs a pizzeria. You never put beef in an oven before. They would call me up and Tom, some of the meat is undercooked, some of the meat is overcooked. I'm like, well, what are you doing? We open the box, we season it, we put it in the smoker. I said, do you size it? He goes, what do you mean? I said, do you put big and little pieces in? Because common sense would dictate that they don't cook at the same rate. He goes, we never thought of that. I think because you're pizza guys.
Yeah.
But
well, Tom, it's been fun talking to you.
Yeah. So I got one last thing to roll by you because we talked this once before. So I'll give it for those in the listening audience. I'll give a quick recap. So 1976, October 76, I joined the Army, and it was called the Delayed Entry Program. I was 17. They allowed you to sign up up to a year prior to your actual start date, and that gave you time in service. So because I signed up in October 76, I got the OGI Bill, which was changing January 77. I went to Fort McCollum for my basic training and my advanced training. So I was there for about 4 months. Subsequently, they closed Fort McCollum down because during the 60s and 70s, they produced chemical weapons, Agent Orange. And so it turned out that they found there was a toxic waste. So I don't really know if I approached them or if they approached me, but I started with a law firm. It's one of those, if we win, we get a third. If we lose, we get nothing. So that was 5 years ago, I signed the contract. And just 2 weeks ago, and you're talking about your bureaucracy, they conceded the following facts. They conceded that I have Parkinson's. They conceded I was in the Army. They conceded I was at Fort McCollum. They conceded that I had depression as a result of my Parkinson's. Everything I get told the law firm, I'm very, very frustrated because everything I told you 5 years ago, 5 years later, they finally said, yeah, we concede all that happened.
Yeah.
So now the next step is, I have a wellness physical or meeting, they've got to go, and they say it's to determine compensation and benefits. So I don't think I'm not trying to hold my breath and say maybe this is going to happen, maybe it's not, but there's a bigger part going to the greater good. Certainly if they find a connection, I'm not going to say no to the money. No. But more importantly, if they find a connection, that opens the gates for other people that served at that location that have neurological diseases. Now we have precedent that says someone was there, he has Parkinson's, we believe there's a connection. And to me, that just opens the gate to, I don't know, of the 1 million people in the U.S. have Parkinson's, how many of them are in the military? But there's a part of me during Parkinson's Awareness Month, I was trying to do more self-reflection. And I had asked myself, knowing what I know today, would I have done the same thing, i.e. would I have joined the Army? And I started thinking about it. I said, yes. And because I don't know if the Army caused my Parkinson's or if something, so I can't blame it on the Army, but I do know that in my family, no one talked of college because my mother raised 5 of us herself. There was no money. College just wasn't a thing at the time.
Yeah.
So if it wasn't for the Army, I wouldn't have the GI Bill. I wouldn't have gone to college. I wouldn't have taken this job. I wouldn't have moved out here. I wouldn't have met my wife. I wouldn't have.
Everything would be different.
My life would have been different. So, and I also, something to what you've alluded to is I can't change the past.
No.
I can sit here and dwell on whether or not it was the Army or anything else that caused my Parkinson's, but it doesn't change anything.
It doesn't make it a difference.
So you got to, and I'd like to point, I'll leave you with this, is that your view is you don't have Parkinson's. You have I don't know how you have a disease or a condition, but you don't want to be, you're not Jim with Parkinson's. You're
No.
Jim who happens to have fill in the blank.
Parkinson's is just part of my life.
No. But I'll leave you one quick. I was always worried about coming out with as being someone with Parkinson's because I didn't want to be seen differently. So as I got to know the people with the pickleball group, it's very social. So I started telling them, and to my surprise, nothing had changed. Everything was just, but a couple of weeks ago, I just blew a shot. It was just humiliating, embarrassing. And the guy yells, my friend, we call him Bill. He goes, Tommy, don't blame it on the Parkinson's. You just suck. And at that moment, to me, and then the other day, I was having trouble tying my shoelace.
Yeah.
And one of the guys said, can I help you? And I know he was being sincere. And I'm like, thank you, but I'm not going to have you tie. I'm thinking to myself, I'm not going to have you tie my shoes on a pickleball court. But afterwards, I went up to him and she said, his name is Bob. I said, Bob, I just want to say I appreciate what you did. And so for those people out there, if you can take any wisdom from Jim, is live your life. Don't think you can't control what happened in the past. Just acknowledge it, process it, and move forward.
Yeah.
And have tenacity and patience, because you're going to need those to survive.
Yeah.
Well, Jim, as always, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate you jumping in, and thank you for the earlier advice. I'm going to certainly follow up on that.
All right, man. We'll talk to you later.
Take care, my friend.
Bye-bye.